One of my resolutions this year is to go through a backlog of games that I've always wanted to complete and review them. The first game on that list for 2018 is Metal Marines on the Super Nintendo. Now I know so far that all my reviews have been on the Super Nintendo, but I'll be moving on to other consoles soon enough. So let's get to Metal Marines. You're going to hear this reference quite a bit in my reviews, but this is another game that I would often rent as part of Movie Gallery's epic 5 games for $5 for 5 nights deal. I miss those days of actually renting games, checking out Nintendo Powers and other guides from the library, and having a group of friends over to play them all. The 1990s were such a simpler time, and it was fucking awesome. Anyway, Metal Marines is a title that feels way different than any other Super Nintendo game that I have ever played. I often compare it to an early version of StarCraft, but with giant mech robot battles. The story goes like this. In the year 2115 AD, scientists build a new antimatter technology, which of course ends up being applied to weapons research. 2 warring nations have a border scuffle, which turns into total nuclear warfare. Within 2 years, the Earth is in shambles, and the winning general of the war, Zorgeef? I'm just gonna go with Zorgeef, declares himself Earth's emperor. Seemingly bored with ruling Earth, he and his generals set their sights to dominating the remaining Earth colonies in space. Unable to ignore this threat, the colonies unite together and travel to Earth to battle Zorgeef? I don't know. The gameplay in Metal Marines is very unique. I guess I would call it somewhat of a mix between a turn-based and a real-time strategy game. There are 20 missions in total, getting progressively harder as you advance through the game. You'll start each mission placing your 3 bunkers in any location you'd like. I recommend not putting them together, or else you can lose in a single turn. I also recommend placing them away from buildings, because the computer will target them endlessly. The mission ends when either you or the computer destroys their opponent's 3 bunkers. You have a variety of different offensive and defensive options at your disposal. You can defend your base with missile turrets, gun pods, and Metal Marines. Each defensive missile starts with a low percentage chance to shoot down enemy missiles. You can increase the chance by building anti-air radars. Be aware that the maximum amount of useful radars you can build is 4, and that'll give each missile a 55% chance of hitting incoming enemy targets. There are also landmines and dummy bases that you can use, but I've never really found a use for either one of them. On the offensive side, you can use missiles, Metal Marines, and the ICMB, which is basically a screen-clearing missile. The ICMB is nearly impossible to build, so for the purpose of this video, I just built one to show you what it can do. The ICMB takes about 5 minutes to build, a ton of space, and more energy than you can really muster up in any of the middle to later missions. You are also able to upgrade your missile defense, attack missiles, and Metal Marines for some additional money. Your army is limited by your resources. Each attack takes energy to use, and every unit takes money to build. Both of these resources go up by 1 point per real-time second of gameplay. These resources can grow at a faster rate if you build energy plants or supply depots. There's also a factory that you can build to reduce the build time of all of your structures. You can attack at any time that you want, and your opponent attacks fairly often, sometimes before you can really get anything built. Starting out the game is a pretty easygoing affair. You're allowed to beef up your defense and attack at will. As you get further and further through the game, map terrain becomes a large factor in what you can get away with. Take level 12 for instance. At the top of the map is a long, thin stretch of land. Near the bottom is a shorter but wider area. Originally, my strategy was to build up the top of the land and use that as my main base area. However, what I learned is that only having a couple rows of defensive turrets just doesn't cut it. Enemy missiles seem to always get through, and if you lose too many early resources, just reset the game and accept defeat. Eventually, I learned that building up the defense on the shorter and wider area of the map makes it a little bit easier to defend as long as the computer doesn't kill you turn 1. Speaking of dying turn 1, that's probably my biggest complaint about this game. Many times the computer attacks before you're able to muster up enough defense to really stop anything. Your missiles will destroy your ground defense, and their metal marines will level your supply depots and turrets. This led me to reset my console more times than I can remember. After a while, turn 1 of each level kinda started giving me anxiety. I mean, just take a look at some of this bullshit. How in the hell are you supposed to come back from this? It could just be me being greedy and starting out most missions with a couple supply depots, so maybe in the future, I'll invest more into anti-air radars and turrets turn 1. If you have enough anti-air defense missiles, and you get a little bit lucky, they will destroy the computer's metal marine transports. Metal marines destroyed in this way stay destroyed, so it's extremely beneficial to take down their transports before they land. Oftentimes later in the game, an enemy metal marine transport will touch down right in the middle of your base and literally destroy everything. It can be extremely frustrating. Again, feel free to hit that little reset button on your Super Nintendo. I won't judge you. Sometimes you are actually allowed enough time to properly defend your base with gun turrets. Watching the computer's metal marines die can be an event worth celebrating. Unfortunately, golden metal marines are like basically fucking invincible, and they can take out a lot of poorly placed gun turrets with little resistance. You know what? I haven't even mentioned that the computer talks mad shit all the time after a big attack. It actually got to me after a while. Thankfully, you can turn this off in the game menu. Eventually, we find ourselves all the way at mission 20, and my lord, what a pain in the ass this was. This is the first time that the computer has an ICMB built turn 1, and it's always the first thing they start out with. Here are a few examples of what you have to look forward to when you get this far. Like, there's nothing you can do other than to rage quit at this point. It's okay. You see that little purple button on the top of your Super Nintendo? That's the reset button. Typically, it rarely ever gets used, but today is not your typical day. Today, we're playing Metal Marines, so this son of a bitch is going to get used whether you like it or not. I tried several different strategies on the final mission, but everything is just really dependent on where that first ICMB ends up. If you get through 2 waves of attacks and don't lose anything too important, eventually you'll fight your way through their missile defenses and blow up your enemy's missile turrets. With those gone, you only really need to defend against the Metal Marines, and when you finally destroy them all, the game is yours for the taking. Rarely has beating a game felt so satisfying, and at the end, Zorguf is defeated. Before he kicks the bucket, Zorgif gives you a rather rational speech explaining his actions. The Earth is safe from tyranny, and the good guys return home to space in what is a rather decent ending scene overall. So it's hard to really put my final thoughts together for this game, because there's a lot that I love and a lot that I hate about it. The difficulty can be utter and complete bullshit at times. And no, I'm not just joking about the constant resets. I seriously reset this game so many times after a miserable turn 1 or 2 when it became obvious that there was no win condition available. I'm not a big fan of using emulators with save states, but this feels like a title that's perfect for them. On the other hand, let's talk about the things that I love about Metal Marines. This game is unique, and I can't think of anything truly like it on this console. It really has you thinking about how different strategies work together to solve each mission. Maybe rushing money isn't the correct build for some missions compared to others, and I think that brings a pretty solid replay value to this title. This is an easy game to pick up for about a half an hour at a time, and the password system is easy to use and remember. Completing missions feels exciting and rewarding. I've always been a big fan of giant mech battles, so this hits the mark in that regard. So it's kind of a tale of two games for me. The first half of the game feels perfect, and the second half feels unfairly difficult at times. I really wish the computer would just chill the fuck out and let you build back up after a big early attack that you couldn't defend. Anyway, to conclude, Metal Marines is still an extremely fun game and definitely worth your time to play and master. Despite its flaws, I'm still giving this game a solid showing at 4 out of 5 stars. It currently goes for between $40 to $60 on eBay, so if you were on the fringe about adding this to your collection, I would definitely recommend grabbing it, but on the cheap end. It looks like this is also available on the Wii U Virtual Console, so if you own a Wii U, it's a no-brainer for purchase. To everyone, I would like to just thank you for watching. 2018 has been incredibly busy for me so far with collecting, vacations, and all that shit. I promise my next review won't be solely focused on the Super Nintendo, and will have a much crazier production for sure. Oh god damn it, no! No!